morning sun fell softly on Crestwood High's front yard, painting golden lines across the dew-slicked grass and the cracked pavement where students gathered before the first bell. Among the chatter, laughter, and the rhythmic thuds of sneakers on concrete, one girl stood quietly by the main gate, her bag clutched tight to her chest, her shoulders hunched slightly as if trying to make herself invisible. Her name was Lila Carter, a 15-year-old sophomore who spoke less than most kids said in 5 minutes. Her soft brown hair was tied in a loose braid that fell over her pale shoulder, her eyes wide and nervous behind cheap round glasses. She wasn't ugly, far from it, but she carried the kind of silence that made her a target in a world obsessed with noise. The other students had names that everyone knew, especially Vanessa Green and her circle, 3 girls and 1 boy who ruled the hallway with their voices and their phones. Vanessa, tall with glossy blonde hair, wore the school's uniform like it was designer fashion. She smiled like she owned the school, and most days it seemed like she did. Her friends followed her lead. Liam, the athletic prankster who loved attention, Brooke, the sarcastic one with purple streaks in her hair, and Jade, whose quiet cruelty was sharper than any insult. Lila avoided them every day. She had learned how to walk through the halls by counting steps, keeping her eyes on the floor and holding her books like a shield. But that day, fate decided she wouldn't walk unseen anymore. It began in homeroom, just before roll call. The teacher, Mr. Turner, was late, again. The class was loud, kids laughing, throwing paper balls, scrolling on phones. Lila sat in the corner, quietly reading a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Her pencil case sat neatly on the desk, her notebook open to a page filled with small, careful handwriting, but her piece lasted only 2 minutes before a shadow fell over her desk. Well, if it isn't the little. Mouse again. Vanessa's voice dripped with mock sweetness. She leaned over, placing her manicured hand on Lila's desk. Still pretending to be invisible, Carter? Lila didn't look up. Please leave me alone, she murmured, so softly it almost sounded like breath. But Vanessa heard it. She smiled wider, turning toward her friends. She told me to leave her alone, she announced loudly, and the group laughed. Brooke chimed in, Oh, poor thing. Maybe she thinks she's too good for us. Liam snorted. Nah, she's just scared. Look at her hands, shaking already. Lila's fingers curled tighter around her pen. She said nothing, just stared down at her notebook. But that silence, that refusal to react, only made them crueler. Vanessa reached for the pen and flicked it off the desk. Oops, she said mockingly. Guess you dropped it. Lila bent down to pick it up. That's when Liam slid her chair back with his foot. She stumbled slightly, catching herself. Her cheeks flushed red. A few other students laughed. Some looked away, pretending not to see. Nobody said a word to stop it. Then Vanessa leaned down close to Lila's ear and whispered, You really think your quiet act makes you better? Everyone here thinks you're weird, Carter. You sit alone, you eat alone, you dress like it's still 1995. Don't you get tired of pretending people care about you? That last sentence cut deep. Lila swallowed hard, her heart pounding. She wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but her throat locked up. Before she could move, Liam did something that made the room go silent. He picked up her chair. It wasn't slow or planned. It was one of those stupid moments where cruelty meets impulse. He grabbed the backrest, lifted it halfway, and while laughing said, Hey Vanessa, maybe she'll talk if we give her a little shake. But as he swung it playfully, the chair slipped from his hand, hard metal scraping his palm, and it slammed into Lila's shoulder with a sharp crack. The sound echoed, like a gunshot in the classroom. Lila gasped, falling sideways, her notebook scattering across the floor. Pain seared through her arm, and her glasses slid off, hitting the tile. The laughter died instantly. Everyone froze. Even Vanessa's smirk disappeared. Oh my God, Jade whispered. Liam, what the hell? I didn't... He started, but stopped when Lila tried to stand and winced, clutching her shoulder. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. The room was silent, except for the sound of her shaky breathing. For 1 second, guilt crossed Liam's face. But when the classroom door opened and Mr. Turner finally walked in, The bullies recovered. Liam quickly shoved the chair back under the desk and muttered, "She tripped. Man, it's nothing." Mr. Turner frowned. "What's going on here?" Vanessa, ever the actress, smiled sweetly. "Nothing, sir. Lila just fell off her chair." Lila looked up, her lips trembling. She wanted to tell the truth, to scream that they hit her, that she wasn't clumsy. But when Mr. Turner's eyes briefly flicked toward her, he looked tired, the kind of tired that said, "Don't make this complicated, please." She swallowed her words. By lunch, the story spread like wildfire. Some said Lila fainted. Others said she got hit because she started it. Lies traveled faster than truth ever could. When she sat in the nurse's office, her shoulder wrapped in ice, she overheard two girls whisper outside. "Did you hear? She's going to tell her dad." "Yeah, but who cares? What's he going to do? She's just some quiet nobody." But Lila's dad was not a nobody. Daniel Carter was a former Marine, a man of few words, like his daughter, but with a stare that could silence a room. Since his wife died 2 years ago, he'd raised Lila alone, teaching her to stay calm, to never start fights. "You fight only when there's no other way out," he'd said once, polishing the medals he never bragged about. She listened always. She never gave anyone a reason to see her as trouble. That evening, when he picked her up from school,